As the rain whispered against the windows of the quiet city, Henry Walsh, a young photographer for the New York Chronicle, stepped into the warmth of a taxi driven by Jack, an old cabbie with a kind smile and eyes that seemed to remember a different time, and together they glided through the sleeping city beneath halos of streetlight and mist, stopping in places forgotten by day but alive with quiet beauty at night. From the near-empty glow of Times Square, where neon reflections danced like memories on rain-slick pavement, to a hidden jazz club deep in Harlem where the last notes of a saxophone curled like smoke through candlelight shadows. And as Henry raised his camera again and again, he began to feel not just the city's heartbeat, but his own slowing to match its rhythm. And in those soft, golden hours before dawn, he finally understood what it meant to see with more than his eyes, to capture not just moments, but meaning. And as Jack drove him home beneath the fading stars, Henry rested his head against the cool glass of the cab window and let the hum of the engine lull him, the images still glowing gently in his mind like dreams not yet fully formed. As the night deepened, Jack drove Henry through streets where the world seemed to slow, every turn revealing something new, something familiar yet untouched by time. They passed the quiet corners of the city, where the wind carried the soft scent of autumn leaves and old coffee shops closing their shutters for the night. Jack's stories drifted between them like whispers in the calm air, tales of New York in days gone by, of moments captured in photographs long forgotten, and of people who passed through the city's endless flow, leaving behind only echoes of their presence. Henry listened, his camera resting gently on his lap, its weight a reminder of the journey he had begun. By the time they reached their next stop, the city had transformed once again, no longer a collection of buildings and streets, but a living, breathing entity, filled with the soft hum of life even in the stillness of night. They arrived at a small park, its benches empty, the trees swaying in the quiet breeze. "This is where the city breathes," Jack said, stepping out of the cab. Henry followed, camera in hand, as they stood under the pale light of the street lamp. "Take a picture, Henry. But not just of the trees, not just of the bench. Look deeper. Find what makes this place a part of New York's soul." Henry raised the camera to his eye, focusing not just on what was before him, but on the way the shadows danced beneath the lamp, the way the rain had left tiny pools of water that reflected the night sky, like pieces of the universe itself. And as he snapped the shot, he felt it, the city's heartbeat, steady and strong, pulsing through the lens. He had found it, the soul of the city, hidden in the quiet moments between the rush of day. And in that stillness, Henry understood that the heart of New York wasn't in its bustling streets or towering buildings. It was in the moments like this, when everything slowed, when time seemed to stretch, and when the city's true essence was revealed in the quiet. With a soft smile, he turned to Jack. "I think I've got it," he said. Jack nodded, his eyes twinkling with a knowing look. "I knew you would, Henry. The city always tells its story if you know how to listen." With that, the two of them returned to the taxi, the night unfolding around them like a story that had only just begun. As the taxi rolled through the city's quiet streets, Henry felt a deep sense of calm settle within him. The lights of New York seemed to glow softer now, as if the city itself was settling into a dream. Jack, silent beside him, guided the cab through neighborhoods that Henry had never noticed before, small, tucked-away streets where the world seemed to pause and let the city breathe. Each turn felt like another step into a world of hidden stories, waiting to be uncovered. They passed a small bakery with its warm lights flickering from behind a fogged window, a single woman inside carefully folding dough. Jack slowed the cab, nodding toward the window. "That's Mrs. Kavanaugh," he said, almost to himself. "She's been baking those pies since the war. People come for miles just for a taste. She never charges much, just enough to keep her doors open." Henry, intrigued, instinctively raised his camera, capturing the quiet beauty of the scene. A woman lost in her work, the soft light casting shadows across her face as she worked with care and precision. Jack's voice broke through the silence. "You see, Henry, every person has their own story. It's not always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's the small things, the quiet acts, that tell you who they are." The words lingered in Henry's mind as the taxi continued its journey. Soon, they arrived at a small bridge, where the sound of the water below seemed to slow time itself. Jack pulled over to the side, and the two of them stepped out into the crisp air. The city's skyline loomed in the distance, but here, at this quiet spot, it felt miles away. "This is where I come when I need to think," Jack said, his voice carrying a touch of nostalgia. Henry glanced around, taking in the serene beauty of the moment. The water below shimmering softly, the faint sound of crickets in the distance, and the moon casting a gentle glow on the city's edge. He raised his camera once more, capturing the scene before him, but this time it wasn't just the image he was focused on. It was the feeling, the calm, the stillness, the soft pulse of a city that never truly slept, but took its moments to rest, to reflect. Jack watched him quietly, then smiled. "I think you found it, Henry. The soul of the city. It's not in the grand gestures, the hustle, or the noise. It's in the quiet moments, the forgotten corners, and the people who keep the world turning day after day." Henry nodded, his heart full as he placed the camera back in its bag. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he had truly seen New York, not just through his lens, but with his soul. As Jack pulled back onto the road and the night stretched on, Henry knew that he would never look at the city the same way again. It wasn't just a place of buildings and streets. It was a living, breathing story, woven from countless small moments, each one as important as the next, telling the story of a city that never truly slept, but always dreamed. With a peaceful sigh, Henry settled back in the cab, letting the hum of the engine and the rhythmic pulse of the city carry him home, knowing that he had captured more than just photographs. He had captured the soul of New York itself. The soft hum of the taxi's engine was almost like a lullaby now, a steady rhythm that felt comforting and familiar. As they drove through the quiet streets, Henry couldn't shake the sense that the night was unfolding just for him, like the city had opened itself up, letting him see its softer, more intimate side. Jack steered the cab down a narrow lane lined with old brownstones, their windows glowing with the warm, golden light of lamps inside. It felt like a world away from the bustling streets of Times Square, a peaceful haven where time slowed down. "You know," Jack said, his voice low and thoughtful, "this city, it's got layers. People only see what's on the surface, the noise and the lights. But if you dig a little deeper, you find something else, something quieter." Henry turned to look at him, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Jack smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Take a look." He motioned toward a small, tucked-away cafe with a single light on, casting a soft glow through the window. An elderly woman sat behind the counter, humming a tune Henry couldn't quite place. "She's been running that place for years," Jack continued. "Opens every night at midnight, serves coffee and pie, and sometimes she gets a couple of regulars. But most nights, it's just her. She likes the quiet." Henry's eyes followed the soft glow of the cafe's window, the woman sitting alone in her little world, a warm and quiet soul in the heart of the city. Without a word, Henry picked up his camera, his heart stirred by the simple, gentle scene. He snapped a photo, capturing the woman in her quiet sanctuary, the faint steam rising from a cup of coffee beside her. "She'll never be in the headlines," Jack said quietly, almost reverently. "But she's part of this city, just like all the rest of us." Henry paused, letting the weight of Jack's words settle in. He hadn't realized it before, but that was what he had been searching for, those small, quiet moments that told the true story of New York. Not the grand gestures or the loud headlines, but the things that people often overlooked, the unnoticed beauty in everyday life. The taxi drove on, but Henry wasn't thinking about the next shot, or the deadline, or even the story he had to tell. He was thinking about the woman in the cafe, about the way her world seemed so simple and yet so full. The city, he realized, was filled with moments like that, quiet, fleeting, and full of life. As they crossed over a bridge, the water below shimmering in the soft moonlight, Henry felt the weight of the night in a different way. The city was no longer just a backdrop for his photographs. It was a living, breathing thing. And in that moment, he felt deeply connected to it. Jack glanced over at him, sensing the change. "You found it, didn't you?" he asked, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Henry nodded, the peace of the night settling deep inside him. "I think I did." They drove through the night, the city unfolding around them like a dream. The stories Jack had shared, the people they had encountered, and the quiet beauty they had found along the way stayed with Henry long after they parted ways. He realized now that the soul of New York wasn't just in its towering skyscrapers or its endless energy. It was in the moments between, in the quiet corners and the unsung heroes. And with that thought, Henry knew that the photographs he had taken weren't just pictures of a city. They were glimpses into the heart of something much larger, something that could never truly be captured, but would always live on in his memory. The rain had stopped completely by the time Henry and Jack reached the edge of Central Park. The city had changed again, as it always did at this hour. The neon lights were fewer now, replaced by the soft glow of street lamps that lined the park's entrances. The air was cool and crisp, with the scent of fresh grass and damp earth filling the quiet streets. Jack slowed the cab, then pulled to a stop near a small, winding path that led into the park. "You know," Jack said, turning to look at Henry, "this is where I come when I need to think. Not many people get it, but the city, she's got a rhythm. You find it in the quiet spots, the little moments." Henry glanced out the window at the darkened trees and the soft sway of the branches in the night breeze. It was hard to imagine the bustling crowds that filled the park during the day. "I think I understand," Henry said softly. Jack nodded, then reached for his pocket watch, flipping it open. "You've still got time before your deadline," he said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Why don't we take a walk? See what you can capture here when the city's asleep." Without waiting for a response, Jack opened the cab door and stepped out into the cool night air, motioning for Henry to follow. As they walked into the park, the city's sounds seemed to fade away. The only noises now were the distant hum of traffic and the soft rustling of leaves. Henry felt the weight of his camera around his neck, but this time, it felt different, lighter, somehow. He wasn't thinking about getting the perfect shot anymore. He wasn't thinking about deadlines or the story he had to tell. He was just walking through the quiet heart of the city. They wandered along the path, the moonlight shining through the branches above them, casting dappled shadows across the ground. Jack's voice was soft as he pointed out things Henry had never noticed before. The way the light shifted in the trees, the way the city seemed to hold its breath at this hour. "It's like a secret," Jack murmured, "one that only a few get to see. And most people are too busy to find it." Henry took a deep breath, letting the peaceful stillness of the park fill him. In the darkness, he felt a quiet kind of connection with the city, something deeper than just the surface. They came to a small bridge that arched over a stream, the water glistening in the moonlight like liquid silver. Jack stopped and leaned against the railing, looking out over the water. "This is where the city stops pretending," he said, his voice almost reverent. "Where you can hear her, just for a moment, breathing. She's not just steel and stone. She's got a heart, Henry." Henry stepped beside him, feeling the weight of the night settle inside him. He knew what Jack meant now. The city wasn't just a place. It was a living thing, full of stories, full of people, full of life. It wasn't about the big moments or the loud headlines. It was in the small, quiet moments, the ones people missed when they were too busy looking for something else. Henry pulled out his camera, the lens catching the soft glow of the street lamps reflecting on the water below. He raised it to his eye and took a shot. Just the water, just the bridge, the light, the night. It was simple. It was beautiful. And it was exactly what he had been searching for. "I think I've got it," Henry said, his voice low with satisfaction. Jack turned to him and smiled, a genuine, almost fatherly smile. "I knew you would," he said. The city around them seemed to exhale, as if it too had been holding its breath. And in that moment, Henry knew he had found the heart of New York, not in the noise or the lights, but in the quiet spaces between, in the people who lived their lives out of sight, in the stories that were never told. He had captured it, not with his technical skills, but with his heart. As they left the park, Jack dropped Henry off near the Chronicle building. The taxi pulled away with a soft hum, and Henry stood for a moment, watching the lights of the city flicker in the distance. The air was cooler now, the rain had passed, and the city seemed to breathe a little easier. The story wasn't finished yet, but Henry felt like he had found the beginning of something real, something he could share. He couldn't wait to see where the night would take him next. As Henry stepped into the Chronicle building, the familiar hum of the newsroom greeted him like an old friend. The chaos of clacking keyboards and buzzing phones felt distant now, almost irrelevant in the stillness of the night he had just experienced. His fingers itched to flip through the images on his camera, to see if the quiet moments he'd captured were as alive as they felt in the instant. The elevator doors creaked open, and he made his way to his desk, the weight of the assignment hanging over him. But this time, it was different. He opened his camera bag and carefully pulled out the film, setting it on the desk. The flickering fluorescent lights above seemed too harsh for the tender images he had shot just hours before. He wanted to savor the feeling of the night just a little longer, to let it settle into his bones before he started developing the film. But duty called. As Henry clicked through the photos, the images took shape on the screen in front of him. The quiet reflection of Times Square's neon lights on the wet pavement. The weathered street cleaner, Otto, standing alone in the glow of a fading marquee. The couple with the umbrella, their faces illuminated in soft blue, frozen in a moment of love and light. And then, the bridge over the stream in Central Park, the gentle curve of the water and the soft glow of the street lamps. The city's pulse. Just as Jack had shown him, it was everything Barnes had asked for. But more than that, it was everything Henry had been searching for. It was the soul of New York, not in its rush or its noise, but in its quiet moments, the ones people passed by without noticing. These photographs weren't just pictures. They were pieces of the city's heartbeat, the fragments of life people often overlooked. He knew that when his editor saw these shots, it would be more than just a story. It would be an experience. The kind of experience that made people stop, think, and feel. The clock on his desk ticked into the early morning hours, but Henry didn't feel tired. There was a calm inside him now, a quiet understanding of the city and of himself. He was no longer just a photographer. He was a storyteller, capturing the pulse of a place, a city, a moment in time. Just as he finished editing the last photo, the phone on his desk rang. He answered it, the voice of editor Barnes filling the line. "Henry," he said, "you got the soul of New York, didn't you?" Henry smiled, leaning back in his chair as he looked at the screen. "I think I found it." There was a long pause, and then Barnes chuckled. "Well, you're not wrong. I'll see you in the morning. Get some rest." As Henry hung up the phone, he stood up and stretched, feeling the weight of the day finally lift. He looked out the window. The city sprawled out beneath him, its lights twinkling like distant stars in the dark. It had been a long night, but it had also been exactly what he needed. He had found the soul of New York, hidden in the quiet corners, the soft moments, the stories that were never told. And in doing so, he had found something deeper within himself. The rain had stopped, and the city felt at peace. For the first time in a long while, Henry felt like he could breathe too. The city would continue its rush, its hustle, its pulse. But tonight, for a moment, it had shown him its heart, and he was ready to share it with the world.